All right, hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Ooh, this is way too loud. Let me bring that way down. Hey there, Stealth Mouse, Alex Artificial. How you doing? This is a live stream indeed. Hi. Hi, hello. This is very much a live stream. Not a song challenge for once. But today, we have a very special stream. We are joined by my friend, Elliott Klein, who is right here, and you should be able to hear now. Hi. How you doing, Elliott?
How you doing?
We're going to be talking about guitar. Hell yeah. Our favorite instrument, I think. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but...
The best instrument, yeah.
The very best.
Let's draw hard lines in the sand immediately.
Well, we need to say some very controversial things, or it wouldn't be a good podcast.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Otherwise, what's the point of podcasting?
Exactly, yeah. The best instrument. But yeah, Elliott Klein, met him, I think, through the song challenges for the first time. And then we must have met in Amsterdam start of this year. Or was it end of last?
In Amsterdam,
When did you move?
met you in The Hague in probably October of last year, November of last year.
Okay.
That was probably me going like, hi, I learned 2 words. Isn't that amazing? Are they correct?
I'm lost. Please help me. But yeah, we've known each other for a year and a half now, ish. And I thought it was about time that we did one of these again. And oh, hey Emma, how you doing? Yeah, let's talk hacking guitar. What have you been working on, man?
I'm getting ready for a small little 2-week vacation back to the States in like a month. So I was trying to get a bunch of videos done like beforehand, so I could not think about anything those 2 weeks. And then especially when we come back, the like whatever time difference.
Yeah.
I just give myself a day. So I'm trying to get as many videos as I can. So lately it was 2 of those videos are going to be solo arrangements.
Okay.
And so it was arranging them, which that used to be a very deliberate process of like, let me take out the chords and let me see all the different kinds of chords I could possibly work. And then it slowly has turned into what I would call like a Frizzell or Lage approach, where it's like, let me just play this song like 900 times and get bored with it 899 times and like try and do another thing. Try to add something to like surprise myself. And so
that still sounds deliberate in a way. Like how do you approach that? Do you have like what's like your thought process to do something different? Because I feel like oftentimes it's so easy to just rely on your muscle memory. It's hard to do the different thing.
And like so good that we have muscle memory for gigs when you need it. If you need something in the moment, then you have it thanks to muscle memory. But if not, if you're in your room just trying something out, then like fail over and over again. Like I'm sure I went from like, A to whatever the next chord would be, F sharp minor, terribly a bunch of times. But then I like found a lick that was kind of cool and I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be kind of a cool thing. And then like slowly work it out and then kind of try it several times and go, yeah, that kind of fits. And then there you are. Like it's literally like if you can simulate what I imagine what was the case when Seth Rogen or whatever his name, when they were writing Superbad, or like other like coming of age comedies where it's like clearly like a handful of writers or something just like telling each other funny stories and then like a movie comes out of it.
Right.
If you could basically simulate, like if I could simulate you in the room going, I think that kind of, you could do something there. I'd be like, yeah. And then I'll come up with something and be like, you could, maybe something more interesting. And then,
Right.
Like,
do you record or do you record yourself while doing it then? Or
no, because that's like that might be fruitful, but no, I'll end up recording myself once I like get to something where I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the idea of what I wanted. Then I'll record that, and then
Right.
usually the next day go like, was it? And then, yes or no.
Yeah.
And then
Fair.
after that, lately it's been, but does this guitar speak to the song the best, or does that guitar speak to the
Mm,
song the best, or which has the best? So like the first one that I'll release, I was like, God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. It was
mm,
like, this feels like an acoustic song. And I have an acoustic that I don't really care much about. Like, it's there to fulfill the small purpose of having
mm.
an acoustic. But it was one of those, like, this song is too pretty. It needs to be in that, like, piano, like the grand vibe that, like, an acoustic is like, everybody shush, we're listening to an acoustic now.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that kind of thing versus an electric guitar where it can be, like, more pretty and more affected and everything like that.
Mm. That's cool though. I always expect jazz standards from you, not Beach Boys.
Well, trying to branch out. Same thing like with the what is it, that Paul Simon one I did.
Mm.
Just trying to branch out a little bit. It's tough with sometimes with non-jazz standards because there's like, hey, there's three chords, and be like,
Yeah, how
how
do
am I
you
going to
keep
make
it
this interesting for 3 minutes
exactly?
instrumental?
Yeah. Especially for solo guitar, yeah.
Yeah,
Dang, 3 videos though. That's a lot of work. And it's not something I could do.
yeah, you could. What are you talking?
How how do you deal with being away from your instruments for so long? Do you just not practice for a while, or
Wait.
are you bringing?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I'm leaving to France tomorrow, and I'm like, oh, do I bring a guitar? It's not even a week, but still, like,
Your guitar's so light, and the bag is like this big.
oh, that's true. But maybe sometimes you need a break, like, and then you get back into it fresh, kind of thing.
Oh, okay. That to me has been. I took more days off
Mm.
from playing guitar unintentionally, actually, in 2020 than I had since like was 17, 8, 16, whatever.
Yeah.
And that was probably like 8 days, like where, I
Okay.
didn't do anything.
I was gonna say because you were making videos back then, right? Already.
2020, I started in June 2020.
Oh, okay. That
But
was
as you can imagine, when like the world's falling apart, being like, yeah, I forgot to play. Wow. Like,
it's like you had so many other things to do during that time, like being at
yeah,
home and
just I would get these. I guess we don't have Costco here in the Netherlands, but like
no
wholesale whatever, like 4 pound, which would be how many kilograms? The
2 maybe.
2 kilo of trail mix, which really is just waiting to get to the what is it, peanut M&Ms,
Mm.
but like a 4 pound bag of that thing, just doom watching the news, just like,
As you do,
all right.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, but anyway, so yeah, no, the 2 weeks, it's kind of a hassle to fly with it, but at this point,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, you got to get an
like,
extra seat probably.
oh no, if
Really?
usually it's up top, and if it's KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines, yay, they have been very, very nice about like, we obviously have a closet.
Mm.
Every other, like, when you're flying inside the US, they're like, we don't have a closet. Oh, did you say first class? Oh, never mind, we have a closet.
Mm.
But wherever you're flying on KLM, they're like, oh, guitar. Oh, shoot, we should really put that in the closet. And
I had no idea. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah.
yeah, so far they've been very, very nice.
I just
But
keep hearing
that's why
horror stories about any instrument travel. Like, just don't do it if you don't have to, kind of thing. 'Cause
on
it will
Ryanair,
break.
don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's also the good thing about like, if you ever want to travel with your stuff, insure it.
Mm.
So like, if this breaks on the way to the US while I'm there, I'll just get another one.
Do you have it
Like,
insured?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair
All
enough.
the ones that I like take out
Yeah.
are insured for sure.
Oh, okay. What? So going back to the videos,
Oh yeah. Sorry.
how do you prepare for that? Like, what does your practice look like? If we're going to talk about practice today.
Practice for the arrangements?
Yeah. Other than because I assume you also have like some kind of routine of chops that you want to keep up to be able to play like that.
That depends on the no. That used to be a thing, but then that was more, I guess, applicable when like I was gigging all the time.
Sure.
Now it'll be like little bursts of that,
Mm.
and then like a couple weeks where I play just stuff, but it's not like.
Yeah.
But there's a handful of things like I can always go back to a thing I started with Vince and Ben and whatnot in college
Mm.
called a picking party, which is basically a backbeat that Vince programmed to go 5 BPM faster every 5 minutes,
Okay.
and then at 115 it drops back down to 120,
Hmm.
and continues. And it's literally, you can just do uh, rudiments, just not super, not sexy,
Mm.
stuff, or you can make a lick and or just like use it as a baseless, keyless backing track, and
Hmm.
just kind of keep it as like a thing to play over, improvise over, and then that is like a cheat code to like it literally gets faster, so it gets harder, and
Yeah.
you have a very good like exactly how long you've been doing it.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
sometimes you can have something productive happen in 20 minutes, and sometimes you can have nothing productive happen in like an hour and a half, and it's just like, all right,
Right.
for physicality's sake, I probably need to play at least this long. So
Right.
if I play in the day and then do that at night, we'll be all right.
Mm. How long is a picking party then?
That generally will go between like on a very lazy day, like a half an hour, and on a good day, an hour.
Okay. Yeah. And do you go through different techniques or what's like how do you
Yeah,
break it up? Like what do you put
uh,
into practice sessions, if you will?
like if it's not interesting, and all the variations of that. Um, if it's the more interesting, like, ooh, yeah, like this is kind of nice, right? Nothing gets singled out because
Mm.
it's kind of more improvisational. That's the word, right?
Huh.
It's more of improvising nature. Um,
Yeah.
so that turns into just playing. So in that scenario, like I wouldn't think to do like as a cross picking exercise.
Hmm.
I would think of it as like, oh, like this is nice,
Right.
and then the next thing might be right, and that last line was like a little bit of hybrid picking followed by look up, or whatever,
Mm.
but it's not as deliberate in those scenarios.
Yeah, that sounds like a way more musical approach to practicing in a way.
Well, it's more indulgent.
Oh, sure. Sure.
It's very indulgent. I feel like and like fun and sometimes productive to do like the equivalent of shoegaze where you just play a chord and then just like turn some knobs, or just like playing through some changes and you're just like, yeah, I'm not sure if anything like grand is happening right now, but it feels good.
Sure.
Like, um, yeah.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
what do you do about practice then?
Well, right now I'm kind of in a phase where I don't know what I want to do guitaristically, if you will. So I'm just trying to have an efficient practice session that keeps my chops up. Because I notice, especially for like more difficult technique things or like playing fast, like that kind of stuff, I started losing the past few years because I just
Yeah.
didn't do it anymore. Right? I've been getting more into like neo soul and that kind of stuff, and it's just not as fast as metal. So I lost all those. I don't know about lost, but they greatly diminished in speed and accuracy.
I mean, to me, that sounds less like a diminish and more like a like if you could evolve while like by lessening a skill,
Mm,
like like because metal and neo soul are not the same. Like you don't need the chops, and unless you have a vision for choppy neo soul,
right.
then you would practice the chops a lot. I'm guessing, but if that's not what you're hearing, then there's no point
Yeah.
to practice it. I did so much. I used to learn all these Lamb of God songs and different metal songs because like the right hand, like the alternate picking is so fast.
Yep.
and like some of the, especially Lamb of God, it's like
Yeah, I remember
and like
learning a bunch of those.
yeah, it's a really good for if you want a thing to practice alternate picking in drops like D or C sharp tuning, then
Yeah.
like 100%. But then it was like, okay, I did it for like 3 months or 4 months or whatever, learned all these songs, and then it was like, all right, where do I apply this? Oh
Mm,
crap, no! Like at that point, I was like in musical theater, singer, a songwriter, wedding band, whatever, 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 and like none of those genres needed that skill.
mm.
And so it was like, okay, well, this was like a really nice summer for me.
Yeah, maybe if
Like,
you're in a Lamb of God cover band or something, that'll be perfect.
yeah,
But
Y-
you know,
yeah, that was clearly like if I had to separate a practice routine into like professional skills I need to have
mm,
and hobby guitar,
mm,
that was hobby guitar. That was
sure.
like hours and hours of hobby guitar. Had nothing to do with like what's the next song?
Mm.
Like it's not coming out during that.
No, for sure.
Uh,
For sure.
so
Well, okay. Well, so but then you're thinking very deliberately again, like, what is my goal ultimately with guitar? Like, what am I trying to do here? Am I trying to be good for a specific type of gig, or am I just doing this for fun and I want to be able to play my favorite band's tunes or something?
um actually, I think the only goal,
Mm,
in all honesty, because I like uh, that sounds more deliberate than any thought I've thought this week. Probably what you just said,
mm,
uh, and I think the only honest goal is I just very much enjoy playing guitar, and I just want to be good at it. Like
mm,
I want to be good at it is literally, and I would like to over time get either better or like more varied. Like just,
right.
yeah, I didn't, uh, I really loved listening to people play solo guitar of any kind, jazz or not.
Yeah.
And, but it never came up. Like I would play it a little bit here and there, or I play this for myself and then like let that go and then whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and I do it more now because of obvious reasons that started in 2020, and uh, it's just like a fun thing. It wasn't, again, that wasn't like oh, I need to do it. It was just kind of like, okay, I'm here now. How do I play guitar now? How do I
Mm,
continue to get better and exist as a good guitarist?
right.
Um, and that seemed to be the only real way that I could feasibly do. So I did it. Like it's the only way forward that I could see.
Right. But I guess that's also like how you wanted to express yourself at the time.
True. Um, I think there is something to be said though for like when you grow up. I think some people don't care when things are good
Yeah.
or when they are like when you see someone see like a mediocre band or musician and they go, yeah, it's great, and then they see a really great one, and they go, yeah, it's great, and then they go like, and there was something about growing up when I first heard like all the guitar greats and whatever, and or just like crazy musicianship. I was just like, what? I've never heard sound like this.
Yeah.
This is like so deeply inspiring that you can hear someone, you can hear their dedication, you can hear the talent, you can hear everything about it. It's just an interesting sound to hear, even if you have a really good sandwich that's
Mm.
like, you're like, so when you have a really good one, you're just like, whoa, like, like even something as
Such
benign as that.
dedication to the craft.
Kind of, if like
Yeah.
if you, like, that's what Chef's Table. If you've ever seen that on Netflix,
I haven't,
they
no.
just came out with a new Chef's Table all about pizza. And the first one is like some dude in Arizona who like goes to all the farms in Arizona and has all the grain and like so it's like the freshest, most amazing pizza. And like
Yeah, yeah.
I want to try that pizza. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like and like I was so inspired by musicians like that growing up that it's just kind of like I just want to do a good job.
Mm.
Like I just want to play. You know not thoughtful guitar like it's slow and covered in reverb, but thoughtful guitar in that like you care about what you play.
Mm.
Like and it's not bound by what's cool. Like we all hear this lick a lot or
Mm.
right that thing. And anytime I hear that, it's great, sounds wonderful, but you
Yeah.
know exactly when that started in history, and we're in the middle of it, and it'll be like another 4 years.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And uh, it's not bound by that. When I listen to
Mm,
one of my favorites, Borelli Legrand, just came out with a solo album, and it was one of those things where it was like, yeah, that dude's always sort of played like him and sort of like Django.
mm.
And it's just that's what he sounds like. That's just what he's like. What,
Right.
regardless of anything, that's what that dude sounds like. And it's just like stuff like that.
Do you find yourself transcribing much because of that?
No,
If you're
no.
mm,
Highly recommended though if you are starting out. It's much easier than the other route, which would be like listening to hours and hours of stuff and picking things out and then trying to recreate it with your knowledge that you have.
mm, by ear, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. If you heard some lick and then you had to be like reverse engineer the lick and then take it into another
Mm.
keys and then play it from this way, this way, this way. That is more fun to me now. But starting out, learning a few solos was definitely helpful.
Yeah.
Did
Actually, I've
you
always
do a lot of transcribing?
no, I've always wondered about transcribing solos. Maybe because that's how my teacher approached it with me,
Hmm.
in that he was never too interested in going through an entire solo rather than, or more so, he'd be interested in picking out like a few interesting lines. He'd be like, what line sticks out here? What's like the cool line to you? And let's focus on that and learn that lick instead of just try to copy the entire solo front to back kind of thing.
Yeah, that's more productive. The most transcribing I did was at college, where it was literally required every semester to play an entire solo front to back. So it was like,
Yeah. Why do you think
well,
that
that's
is? Is that for like the compositional sense of how do you arrange a solo? Or
I think it's, I think that's what they would tell prospective students and their parents. But I think it's because it's easy to grade.
right.
Did
That's
you learn
fair.
it or not? Can you not even commit to this 35-second solo?
Yeah.
Like, like,
I thought maybe there was some secret merit behind it or something. Like, oh, if you do that, it's so good for you because
there, there would be no rating systems in college if that was the case.
yeah, that's fair. I guess then also it's a more creative endeavor of like selecting your favorite licks and then putting it together how you want.
That would be really cool, but then at some point you couldn't grade that because if someone's idea of a lick would be, what is it, Dimebag Darrell from, I'm forgetting the song.
Cemetery Gates. Or,
No, one of them.
yeah.
Uh, the whole solo is basically like, and like that's most of it,
Mm,
which is also a Meshuggah solo at some point.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And like if someone was inspired by that,
Yeah, that's fair.
and then how do you grade that?
Yeah.
You're like, are you screwing with me, or do you find this inspiring?
Is this your taste or are you just a scumbag?
Yeah, and then especially if it's at like jazz school and you're here like,
Mm,
like, you're like, okay, are you screwing with me, or
that makes
like,
it fusion though, doesn't it? Quite
yeah,
literally.
that makes it an abstract art piece, and they're just not getting it. You're like,
Exactly. So, okay, but so what would you put in a practice session right now? Like if we were to, because if you look at people like Steve Vai, like we talked about before, that crams like, or that advertises a 12-hour, I don't remember how many hours it was, 12-hour practice session, and there's like 1 hour of each aspect of guitar in there or something like that. But
I
that's
think there was,
totally unrealistic, obviously,
well, there's the 10-hour one and then the 30-hour one
for one day.
for, yeah, which is like, um, I don't think that's unrealistic if you want to, go down that road. I
Mm,
don't like if you wanted to play like literally professionally and like
mm,
to that, but to that extent, You wanted to be able to play whatever genre was put in front of you with a bunch of chops, and sight read the whole thing and play over bebop changes on site. You know, and do all that. That obviously takes a lot of work if you want to be like plunked in a country band and then a pop band and then a big band, God forbid, and then
But he doesn't even do that.
he doesn't. But if you wanted to do that, it'll take at least a couple years, 2 or 3 years of doing that
Right.
because there's a lot to cover. Him, I think he probably spent a lot of that time because I think people from that era, like, have you ever seen instructional books from that era? Like, uh, it's like, here's some chords you need to know, and it's just like the full like stuff that would be at this point in time like intermediate jazz would be like barrier of entry jazz then. And then rock guitar instruction just didn't exist.
Right.
And so a lot of them I think were spending that much time because they were like, the only instructions we have are from classical people, and then like we hear jazz players who are like on these spiritual quests to break through the whatever the thing.
Yeah.
And they wanted to bring that to rock, which was way more bare bones then.
Never thought
Also,
about that.
you didn't have tabs back then or anything like that. So like as we know, thankfully we didn't grow up with records either, so we didn't have to move the needle back in a solo over and over again. But like that's what they were doing to learn licks. They were that obviously just adds when you're like, I transcribed for 3 hours. Well, did you do it with the slow downer app as it like slowed everything down, or did you do it as you imported the MIDI and then it became a tab, or did you do it
Did you lift up the needle a million times?
Yeah. So transcribing for 3 hours with a needle on a record is obviously a very different 3 hours than today.
That's a very good point. I never thought about that.
Yeah, and if you ever see him play, Steve Vai play like something he's not written out prior,
Yeah.
he plays very normal guitar. Like he'll play like stuff like that. And we've heard his music. That's not what it sounds like generally.
Yeah.
But you hear players today play something off the top of their head, and it kind of sounds like the shit they post. Like it sounds like a bunch of tapping and a bunch of you hear, so you kind of hear where Steve was coming from, and then where he took it, and you're like, oh, that's probably, and then the lack of technology, that's probably why it took so long. Versus, if you don't have a book labeling all the chords and you have to figure them out, it's just going to take longer.
Yeah, that's very fair. Yeah. It's a good perspective. Never thought about that.
So when guys who are like, anyone over 50 is telling you need to do anything, being like,
take it with a grain of salt.
You always take it with a grain of salt. Being like, just walk in and being like, I am ready to be employed. And then that's how I got hired for 40 years. And then I had one job for 40 years and be like, congratulations to you. Like, that's not how that works today. Like, I think we can see that though in like people like Misha Mansour, who has said many, many, many times he doesn't have a set practice routine or anything like that. But obviously he has really good studio equipment.
Yep.
He bought really cool guitars. He can like play an idea over and over again until it's perfect, and then record it and then learn it.
Yeah.
Which like all that wasn't available until like, what is it? Not even that long ago.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, I mean that's for the past 5-10 years.
Yeah.
That's an interesting approach too, though, because at that point you're also not just focusing on, hey, I'm practicing this technique, but you're just a part that you have to learn, and you're just drilling the part, essentially.
Right, which is great if you want to be, because like he's obviously a professional guitar player and whatever, but like there's obviously a difference between a like can fulfill any professional job and you're in a band that is doing well, so you are professional. Very different asking, or different ask for the musician at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so obviously also depending on what level you're at, you would probably put other things in a session.
Uh, Again, it all depends on your end goal. Like if you want to be in a band and you
Right.
want to be the best guitarist for your band, then I don't think bebop's ever going to come up. Like,
Probably not. Yeah.
uh, if you're really interested in thumping, like you
Mhm.
were, like, and you want to put it in your band, you have your practice routine.
Right. Yeah.
Like, uh, I don't think a lot of for higher guitar players, I don't think that's super necessary to practice.
Mm.
Like, uh, and because it doesn't come up yet. Maybe one day, thumping guitar on like a regular six string for a pop song is like, yeah, you
Maybe.
need that. You got
Might
to
be the
do
new
it.
thing.
Uh,
Olivia's next
but
album. We don't know what's on there yet.
yeah, the next Miley Cyrus country album will have a lot of thump guitar. Like that would be so.
Mm.
Those are the things that like would be like, please let that happen. But like,
That'd be really
uh,
interesting.
yeah. But yeah. So even depending on where you are, you always kind of always want to see your goal. Which, as
Right.
to what you were mentioning earlier, I must have a deliberate idea. Since my only goal is to play well and
Yeah.
discover more about music and guitar. uh, Practice routines they can be set or they cannot be set, or they can go in this
Hmm.
direction or that direction. It doesn't really matter. But if my goal was only I want to play solo jazz really well or solo guitar really well. If I was solo jazz, I wouldn't be holding this.
Right.
I'd be holding a big old jazz box and probably be in a suit.
Mm. Right.
But I want to play solo well. Great. That's
Yeah.
my practice routine now.
So what about a beginner? Comes in, has little to no idea of what they actually want to get out of it or where they can take it.
Perfect. That would be a beginner. They don't know what they want to. They don't. That'd be like, "Hi, I'm here for guitar lessons. What made you want to learn guitar?" I have no clue.
Well, sometimes parents send people in, right?
True. Yeah, and I've had also older students be like, "I heard playing music helps with like pushing dementia further back," and it's like, I hope
Oh,
we
sure.
can create those ridges in your brain or whatever. For in that scenario, it's like a more keeping it fun.
Yeah.
Like the goal, I don't think any of those people came in going like, "Why am I not Steve Vai?"
Mm,
They probably don't know who that is,
sure.
honestly. So that's really kind of like their practice routine should be getting as good as they can, getting as close as they can to the music they love.
Mm,
So whether that is obviously playing it on guitar, but then like, can they sing it? Sometimes I've taught people who are in their like church band or whatever,
mhm.
and can you add can you make something? The acoustic guitar in a church is basically like the lead guitar in every
Mm.
other music. It's like someone comes out there and everyone's
Yep.
like, "Ah, oh my God, it's that thing."
Yeah, yeah.
And so like, can you add
Mm,
as an intro, and then if I get them to
yeah.
do that, which would be like single notes. Oh, sure, are you sure about that? And we
Yeah.
can add that as a challenge. They can bring it to the band and they go, "Ooh, this is a cool intro," and then they feel proud.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more about as a teacher, their emotions when they're practicing and getting a result quickly. So a tangible one in that scenario. Another
Yeah.
student, what is it? Like again, um, trying to get someone to sing or something like that, and they find out they kind of enjoy being able to play for their family or play for their
Yep.
kids or husband or wife or whatever. Um, uh, yeah, like that those kinds of things are key in those 30-minute practice, because they generally will have less time to practice because
Right. Yeah. And in a case like that, I imagine a lot of time is spent on repertoire in general.
repertoire, and then like mild technique, but based very clearly around a song.
Yeah. Right.
If we're working on strumming, it's because the verse needs it.
Mm.
For a kid, though, in that scenario, like, please tell me, because
I don't teach kids, but That sounds like a nightmare.
At that point, I think the teacher has to go. The goal here is for them to just be happy at the end of this.
Yeah, probably.
Like,
Occupational therapy kind of thing. Just keep them
how
busy.
anyone teaches kids is like beyond. Like they're all heroes in my mind. Like,
When did you start playing guitar?
like 16 and a half
Okay.
in a I know that because I'm born in July and I like got a guitar on like in December. So it was like I happen to know exactly. Like uh but
I know it because
yeah,
I have
yeah.
a picture. My dad took a picture with me in the car with the guitar, and he has the date of when the picture was taken. So I know like the exact day that
How old are you?
I was 10.
That's more standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went through the basic like acoustic guitar lessons with no fucking idea what I even wanted to do. Essentially, other than hey, I want to play guitar.
That's perfect. I started doing that because that's a little bit how I started as well. I actually 16 and a half is when I got my electric, but every now and again would play an acoustic and be like, I want to do this, but not on this.
Mm.
And that's been my first recommendation to any like kids who like, the parents want the kids to get a guitar, being like an electric, please. Like don't with like 12 gauge strings, higher action, and like this big dreadnought so the kid can't get their hand around it, and
Yep.
you're just being like, not that. Don't like. But I'm glad you had the same experience. It's like, yeah, so I started on acoustic, my fingers bled, and then I moved to electric. And
Yeah,
you're like,
essentially. Well, I quit for a while because I was like,
right,
I
exactly.
fucking
Of
hate
course
this.
you did. Of course you did,
Yeah.
because you're like, I can't even make any noises on this thing that aren't like,
Exactly.
I don't like, kind of pretty, I guess. Like,
Well, there's
yeah.
also like that's a good argument for having a goal. Could be a loose goal too, because like that's exactly what I didn't have. It was just like your teacher telling you, "Hey, you got to do this," and you're kind of like, "Well, I just kind of want to play video games, to be honest."
Do you ever like so your 10-year-old experience would mirror mine pretty well of like, yeah, I want to do this, but I also want to play video games, and I feel like that's more rewarding per minute than uh and when I hear these stories of like, so and so started playing at 4 and then they were like, recording with Blue Note at 9, and I'm like,
Right? That's
do
bizarre.
you just hate video games, or like were you the most like a creepy kid who's weirdly adult like hello, nice to meet you, and you're like, what are you like, you're like 7, what are you, nice to meet me, you should be like farting and like burping and like
Right? Yeah. Yeah, or
uh,
like parents that are very strict, maybe kind of thing of like, you need to
right.
get your hours in, child.
Even then, like, could you like if the student if the child in that scenario is willingly doing it, and it's a level of adulthood at that age that I just don't understand.
Well,
If
it's weird
it's
for a kid to have that sense of dedication to something, because also
that requires
distractions are
work.
yeah. Where and also obviously even more so now, like with a world that's so full of distractions that are so shiny, right?
Did you ever feel anything when you see like I can't judge them because I don't know what it's like to raise a kid, but when you see like a maybe 1-year-old in a stroller, just like
Oh yeah, that's
you're just
terrifying.
like, you're like, there's no way that kid's brain is gonna be.
That's not gonna
It's
be
like,
yeah.
it's like the first mutation. Like you're seeing the next kind of human being. You're like, when that happens for the next 100 years, and the people like who are 6 months old are just staring at a screen like that, their eyes aren't gonna work the same
There
as
can't
ours after
not
like
be
100 and
yeah.
200 years. Like,
Like there can't not be an effect, yeah, or a
yeah,
result from that.
there's gonna be a seriously interesting evolution.
Merging with
Yeah.
the computer.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine when like, yeah, seeing something in real life would just be like, yeah, it's not high def enough, honestly. Honestly, right now you look
I
in
can't see
higher
the ray
def than when
tracing on your camera, Elliot. What's going on here?
yeah. But yeah, so yeah, especially if
Yeah.
a kid now, I think there's a few. I think that Ronnie Elliott would be one. I think that's his name.
Mm.
A little kid who takes lessons with Jonathan Kreisberg, who's a very old school in terms of his approach,
Yeah.
jazz guy, and like I don't know how old he is. I think he's like 11, and he like
Mm.
plays a bunch of like hard ass jazz standards, like busking in the town square of wherever he lives, and I'm
Right.
just like, what?
It's bizarre.
Also, what are you playing like a Charlie Parker tune for? You're 11 in 2022. Like you
Mm.
couldn't have less to do with that.
Yeah, very non-relatable kind of thing.
Uh, yeah, I don't know, but we'll see
But
where it goes. Maybe he'll be
yeah,
maybe he'll push it forward in a really interesting way in a decade.
yeah, or he'll be totally sick of it in his teenage years, and he's like, "Why the fuck did you make me do that?"
Yeah, that would be too bad.
Yeah.
That would be
So,
um
what if you're more advanced and you know your basic techniques, but you know a lot of them, you want to keep them all up, like the chops, if you will. So you got to start
mm,
combining them somehow, right?
yeah, that's a 30-minute or an hour of just um at that point it would be almost like just play
Just play
because
songs,
if you
essentially.
play songs with like heavy instrumental parts to it, so if one of the songs you chose was Sweet Child of Mine or something, there's three solos.
Mm.
A lot of bending, a lot of like the last one obviously has some choppy moments.
Hmm.
Um, you'll hopefully be aware of the tones you have. You need a clean one and then the distorted one.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, there's obviously a ton of bending and sliding, but like
Hmm.
that one would be one song where you're getting a lot in there. And if you have like 30 straight minutes of guitar heavy stuff, you know,
Right.
AC/DC comes next and then Led Zeppelin comes next. You'll cover it. Like, and if you're able to make like 5 30-minute playlists like that, if you only have 30 minutes, you have Monday through Friday ready to go.
Right.
So you're building repertoire. You're going to hit a lot of the different techniques. You'll be hopefully playing them in time, and you'll be hearing your sound with an ensemble if you are playing like into your computer or if you're playing just like while blasting it on a speaker or something.
Mm. So, I
Um,
mean, yeah, if you take like an AC/DC track like Thunderstruck or something, you got a bunch of like pull off patterns into open notes. Or I guess
right.
he actually picks it, but whatever.
But you could do one or the other, and then
Yeah.
that Tuesday is a pull off day or it's a pick day.
So, would you feel that's more effective than just creating some kind of like etude for yourself with pull offs like that? That's a bit more
Uh,
deliberately, hey, I'm practicing pull offs right now.
the etude with pull offs would be if you want to take your pull off skill to like some other higher level.
Mm.
Um, that's when yeah, that's when you would do that. If you're like if you have a fine grasp of pull offs, then like
Mm.
if you like the music I mentioned previously, you don't need a vast pull off knowledge. You
Yep.
need a working one. And if you just need to keep everything working, then I would just play those songs.
Hmm.
If at some point you're like, but I really want to solo over these wacky changes from this other song, well, then now we need to focus on something more deliberate. Now it wouldn't be necessarily just play that song.
Right.
It would be isolate those chords, find out what makes them difficult, you know, work out some exercises to get more familiar with them, and then back to the original, just play the songs.
Right. That's a good point, actually. Like, what if you're interested in the improv route and you want to just have good chops?
Yeah, improv I don't think is a big thing anymore, which is like I guess one obvious and two sort of depressing. Um, but I remember seeing an Andertons thing recently with Sophie Burrell, a UK based, mainly just social media guitar player. And she was saying she hates improv.
Okay.
Uh, and I think the captain was like, oh, you know, like so and so said that as well. Like there was like a handful of people. I think it was some maybe Mishimensu or something like that. He was like, I'm not jamming with you at the beginning of this video. It's just not happening.
Okay.
Like, I hate improv, blah, 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 blah. And it was just kind of like, oh, like you hear that more and more. And if you're not into it, like, good for you, because that's way easier not to do it. Like,
Mm.
it's way easier to write out a lick, play it, and then like write out 10 and just play them sporadically.
Yeah.
You know, so much easier than kind of what I mentioned previously, which would be like the Frizzell or Lodge approach to like a tune, which would be like, I remember actually it was Julian Lodge wanted to do a duo set with Bill Frizzell. And he was like, "Oh yeah, let's see if we can play well together." And so he was like, "Yeah, we were on this tour, and we backstage to like warm up. We would do this thing, and the first night we played a tune for 10 minutes. The next night 30. The next night 45, and the next night an hour for like a song."
Yeah. Jesus.
And like
Yeah.
that's clearly the improv way to do it, because you through doing that, through spending a hilarious amount of time playing one song, they like exhausted every area and possibility on the guitar that could be available to play over that progression.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why you if you ever listen to them as a duo, you're like, this could go anywhere. Like and like that is obviously like more laborious and not necessarily successful. It's like what
Sure.
other people find fun about improv is the like, oh, like when it works, like you just saw like an acrobat with no net or something like that, like pull it off. When it doesn't work, you know, when
Yeah.
there's no net, it's like, like and so
But I
it
feel
makes
that
sense.
freedom is personally I find very enjoyable. But also I imagine that being able to do that well makes you very flexible in terms of then playing on whatever.
Ish, unless you're good at coming up with stuff quickly. Because another generally non improviser is studio legend Brent Mason, who's like on every country song since like the 80s. Which was surprising to me because he loves a lot of jazz.
Yeah.
But when you hear him talk about whether it's on the country albums or obviously on his own recordings, he plays that same solo live at this thing, live at that thing, whatever. And you're like, oh, yeah, yeah. And then for the recording, when he was talking about it in the studio, he's like, yeah. And then like time for the solo section, and everyone would take a lunch break, and I would come up with something for like a half an hour where you try to, you know, make it really interesting and fun for, especially in Nashville, the guys on Broadway where all the cover bands are, being like, maybe I'll make an interesting solo that they can play
Yeah.
and they'll be excited about, that is also pushing the band in another way. So those licks are well thought out beforehand and like have another handful of takes. But yeah, so I agree with you about the freeingness, about the like all the plus sides to it. But I guess I understand now why people don't seem to value it, because especially if they're posting on social media, they just want to look good. Being like, you know, so
Yeah,
that'd be a
'cause-
nice guitar course. Do you want to look good? Never improvise. The like,
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I guess social media in a way does kill that that improv spirit. 'Cause
yeah,
you don't want
like
to fuck up.
it would be like a really nice conceptual Instagram profile channel, whatever, to watch someone improv and just have it suck some days and not suck other days. It'd be
Right.
like, no, I don't think anyone has patience for that, but it would be a very like,
Yeah.
you know, it'd almost be like that person's niche of like, he's the improv guy. That's why it sucks sometimes. Like, you know,
Yeah.
so.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
if you want to do that though, if like that's your passion to be a good improviser, then like that's gonna take a little bit more time, because then you need a fluidity of like playing everything that you could possibly want to hear. So now you should know kind of how all the chords would lead to each other, and then you just need to also just practice improvising. So you just need to sit there and make stuff up for 30 straight minutes and just do that 5 times a week. And that's pretty exhausting in comparison to like learn a lick, play it, go, nailed it, and
Yeah,
then
done. On to the next one. Yeah.
I won guitar, and good. Guitar was done today. Wonderful.
Perfect. Knocks it out of the
Imagine having
park.
a 30-minute long improv that you weren't happy about. Like that's so much time.
Yeah,
But
yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, hmm.
how about you? What would you suggest for 30 minutes for intermediate?
30 minutes for intermediate. Well, I agree with you that typically you want to go for like a goal, like have a song in mind and you work around that. That's what I would do with a student, say.
Hmm.
In a situation that I'm in now where I am interested in improv and I don't know specifically what technique I want to get better at, I'm just trying to get a bit of everything in, but that's obviously too much for half an hour. So it's something I struggle with a little bit,
Hmm.
but I tend to try to hit like some basic things that I know that aren't as good right now. Like for example, um, I might be feeling comfortable with my tapping and hammer-ons and pull-offs, so I'll leave that to the side for now. But I'll focus again on alternate picking because I haven't done that in a while. And I need to
Hmm.
brush back up on those skills, for example.
Do you ever just improv for like 15 minutes on this channel?
I used to do that. I did that for a couple of years. Yeah, that's how I learned to improv. I
Huh.
actually never did like jazz studies and stuff like that to like the music theory route of like, oh, you got to follow the changes and all that. I learned improv through here's all these pop songs I like, rock songs and all that. Let me try to play over it by ear. And then
Sure.
gradually I kind of understood like, hey, this works and this doesn't.
Well, I don't even mean improv like soloing over changes. I mean like make a song and then solo over it. Like make a song, improvise a song form, and then solo over that the
Like
thing you
solo
just
guitar
made.
or
Yeah, yeah.
no, I haven't. No, I don't think I've like on rare occasions messed around, but never fully like gone down the solo guitar route. Yeah.
That kind of improv is like so terrifying.
Oh yeah, I think that would be brutal. Honestly.
It'd be the equivalent of someone being like, "Hey, sit at this piano and like play something like a happy tune.
Mm,
Go."
right.
And then if someone could just make up like a 5 minute long happy tune, you're just like, "Wow, all right, shit, okay."
Goddamn.
Like,
I guess you're the best musician.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. And then what do you do with that? Yeah, exactly. Like,
Cool, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, I guess you won. I guess you win.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that's been, yeah, again, at the end of the day is, and then what do you do with that? Um, but yeah, I think that's why practice routines actually get harder as you get older or as your goals become grander.
Could be. Because I definitely feel like in the past it was easier for me at least. Where it was just like, I like this song, I learned this song. That was the approach, really.
Yeah, you're just intaking, and then once you have a good grasp of things, like if you have no goals, then you just kind of hang out and play. If you have harder goals, it's just harder to get there. It's
Mm.
like every harder goal is just harder and harder to get to.
Hmm.
And then once you get there, it's like, well, again, what do you do with it? Are you this player now? What are you gonna, especially as a someone trying to make money off of it, being like, how is this a monetizable
Mm.
skill? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Well, with improv, there's the obvious answer, I suppose. You just
What?
you just don't,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
guess
So
people even say that about jazz. I mean, that's not strictly true, but
it's like it's like mostly true. It feels
mostly
like.
true. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. You get reminded that every time, in case you're like, no. There's some jazz players. Just look at like the top 10 jazz players on Spotify and compare them to the top pop people, and it's like, yeah, nah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bizarre difference. Um, Still wondering how you would make a lot of your exercises musical. How you would go about doing that.
I think sometimes just playing them pretty, if that makes any sense.
Mm.
You ever run through like one, A to D major arpeggios just over and over again?
Hmm.
How did you play it when you did that?
Well, probably when I first started, just play them straight up and down, right?
Right. So like that could sound pretty, right? Right. Um, but that after a while, you like after maybe like a few seconds, you're like, all right, and
Very
then you just
boring.
you keep doing it, and you're
Yep.
like, all right. But to make it a bit harder on the front end makes it a little easier on the back end. Then like pausing. It's still only using the arpeggio, but now we're
Right.
kind of playing a little bit. We're kind of
Changing the
messing
pattern.
around with notes a little bit. Yeah, and so it's becoming like, hey, use A major arpeggio, D major arpeggio in this area, and just make stuff that sounds nice.
Right.
And that's a lot more interesting.
Mm.
A bit more fun, a bit more interesting. You can get a little bit more out of it, and then you're also kind of emotionally attached a bit more to what you're doing, so you
Right.
remember it a little quicker.
It's almost more like you're taking a compositional route, also.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you wrote that out for sure, if you like wrote out like A to D a handful of times with all these different kind of with a new approach every time,
Mm.
then yeah, definitely a compositional approach and a bit more exciting to do than just going back and forth. Because
Yeah.
who solos like that anyway?
Right.
Um,
Well, I mean, some
fair
some.
enough.
Let's not name names,
It's
but
it's not too often.
this is true. Um, yeah. So how would you split that up in, like, say you have an hour? It's an advanced player. They have an hour to practice every day, and they want to just build their chops up, but they also want to build maybe a repertoire or create their own things. Would you dedicate like half an hour to compositional ideas and half an hour to just chop building? Or
I would always put, unless you really need
like, where do you put the
serious
weight, if you will? What's like the
the composition part. Unless you're
mm,
playing metal, like the chop barrier for entry is not that high.
mm,
Like it can get lumped into other stuff. Play the compositional thing faster.
mm.
Like like those archaic chop building exercises from the whenever of like the famous the Petrucci one.
Mhm.
This I spent a lot of time on has gotten me nowhere.
You can still do it pretty fast.
Never like let me see, hold on. Right, like never done that in a solo.
Yep.
No solo I have played has called for it and I haven't been able to do it. It's just like not what is it? All the other ones. This one.
Oh yeah, yeah. Paul Gilbert
This
thing.
stupid like he played it and it sounded cool. No song on earth I've played has that been like a yeah, you should definitely do that. Um so like
Instantly
uh
reminds me of that. Yeah, it's like a '80s VHS
yeah.
instructional thing. He pulls a bunny out of a hat and stuff like that, like those silly '80s
Yeah.
things in between.
Also, to be fair, you should, if you wanted to shred, you would never have this guitar. The radius on this guitar is not shred friendly,
Sure.
especially for stuff like that.
Mm.
It's a very round neck as opposed to like my Sir, which would be like, oh yeah, let's shred away.
I've actually been switching guitars every day though, as like as if changing weights, and I found that an interesting.
Hmm.
I found that an interesting way to practice because I noticed that after playing the Strandberg for so long, I grabbed the Fender again, and it was awkward
Right.
because it was just so much less comfortable, essentially.
And now it's more comfortable.
I feel so, yeah. I feel it's easier to play other guitars again.
And there's probably like certain licks that are just like, or certain phrases that are just better on different instruments.
Probably, yeah.
Obviously, like that first inversion major 7 chord,
Mm.
probably way better on the Les Paul.
Mm.
But yeah. Um, so yeah, I would put chops on the back burner unless you're a metal person, because I've never chops on the back went on the back burner for me at a time when I started seeing metal. Everyone in metal was playing with their guitar right here.
Yeah.
They were playing probably a John Petrucci signature, uh, and they were just doing the most ridiculous, like sweep plus and then a tap and then tap 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 tap, sweep 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 tap 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 tap, and
Yeah.
like all the shred dubstep guys where it's like bing 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 whap whap, and like they're just like, it looks exhausting, honestly. And it
Hell of
was
a
like,
workout,
oh,
yeah.
so the chop barrier for the average nobody is higher than Ingve. Like, I'll see myself out. Like, I think I can get my message across with less than that, unless my message in this scenario is, remember chop building? I don't need to do that for
Sure.
anything.
Yep.
So
Yeah, makes sense.
at some point, also a big thing that people forget is there's chop building with single notes, which everyone focuses on, but there's chop building with chords and making this.
Oh yeah, that's never mentioned unless you're maybe doing chord solo playing.
Yeah, and getting your fingers to go boop, beep, boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
Like that is its own chop.
Oh, yeah.
Like area, and like also I think that has more use for more people. You do get a strong hand by holding these wacky chords. You do get more flexibility.
But also, you're really building a way deeper understanding of your fretboard, I feel, with that.
Also that, yeah, because the other chop building a lot of times is like parts of a scale or an arpeggio or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And the chords are is at least like, hey, one, you can use this, and then two, just play it one note at a time, and it's an arpeggio now. Like,
Well, that's exactly it. Because in like recent years, I got interested in music theory and learning all these skills and modes and all that shit. But when I was in my metal years, I had no idea. I'm clueless. Like I could play, right? But I had no idea what it actually meant, if you will, or how I could convey it in a theory sense.
yeah,
Fretboard knowledge wasn't very deep, if you will.
I wouldn't even think that you need the names for all of it, as long as you have those shapes. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
if you didn't know the names of the modes, but you could play all of them, then great. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
if you didn't know all the names of all the chords, but you knew this one led to this one in an area, then you're being like, okay, this thing. If you knew this, that little, if you just know it as an idea and you don't know that you're using E flat major as a passing,
Right.
then I think that still works, and you still have a good, you have like a good fretboard knowledge that's not labeled.
Sure.
It's like going to a nice grocery store, and there's just nothing. Everything's in a bin, but it's all really good.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
yeah,
Bruno says
I know,
also there's chops in the sense of trying to play more wide intervals.
Oh, wide intervals. I should be looking at the chat. I should go on Twitch. My bad.
We're on YouTube.
We're on YouTube.
Yes.
My bad. My bad, everybody.
We're just chilling.
Boop boop boop. Well, I just want to make sure that I'm not.
Everyone's been ignored this entire time. These two self-indulgent guitar players.
But yeah, in case anyone asks anything or how about your students lately? Like, is there any like issues they've been having that involve practice routines?
Not so much issues. I noticed for some people it's difficult to translate exercises into actual musical ideas. Like, for example, the thing we talked about earlier, where you're maybe learning some arpeggios, like major arpeggios, like your caged shapes, right? To then turn that knowledge into something that sounds pleasing and musical seems difficult for a lot of people because they still have the tendency to just go up and down. Or then if they learn a different way to approach it, like maybe string skipping or moving in thirds through a shape, they still find that they tend to do little formulas and not musical phrases, if that makes sense.
Well, that's interesting because then the goal, I've always taught, anytime I teach caged, I think of it as like, here are 5 different like houses of licks. Because if there's nothing initially musical coming out of it, I'm a little bit surprised about that because like, so that, what is it, that first one, right? The C shape.
Yep.
Being like, if they listen to anything involving classic rock whatsoever, all of those C shapes should be, yeah. Right.
In a metal context, not so much though.
No, but in a metal context, then yeah, it's just, and then yeah, that is more difficult, I suppose. Although, maybe in that scenario, I might go like, can you alternate pick each one in a different like. Right, like, vary that up a bit. Combine whatever like is the technique of the genre you like, and then make 5 licks in each 5 caged positions. I mean, like, it turns into because at least in like the bluesy classic rock realm, you definitely are like, is it this like, or like certain notes just become available or not.
Yeah. Very obviously through the shape.
Very obviously through the shape. Yeah. But yeah, to be fair, I only know like, if you were gonna look at Dimebag Darrell's soloing, you'd be like, I don't know about caged.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think. I don't know if that's necessary.
Absolutely, you'd get more out of 3 note per string or something.
I don't know. I think at that point, like, learn wacky techniques and then just literally do them. Like, at this point, like this thing. Like,
sure. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's more like a geometrical shape, just moved up and down strings.
Right. So it'd be like, okay, how do you work that into the key of whatever song you're playing?
Yeah.
The geometrical shape thing, which Van Halen did and Dimebag did, and Kerry King tries to do. The but then he would have like random dive bombs and random like was it like.
Yep.
Now you're just like, okay, how many sounds can we also just make with the guitar that sound aggressive? And
it's almost like sound design in a way.
If I didn't just spend like 2 hours watching sound design videos and realizing that sound design now is basically becoming a Foley artist became sound design.
Yeah.
That was actually.
What are you looking sound design up for?
A friend of mine was like, I think you would enjoy sound design. And then I watched the video and I was like, oh, this dude just is making the sounds for like Call of Duty, like boot noises and like gun reloading noises.
Did he not just mean synthesis, like playing with synths?
No. He had like a program that he was able to like, add all these different things to every sound and then combine them into one.
Yeah.
To make the sound of boots or whatever. And but then at the end of the video, it was so interesting. At the end of the video, he's like, anyway, so I'm still unemployed, so your boy is available in case you want him for. And I'm just like,
no.
like that's not the intro to sound design that you want. Like, yeah. So, oh, Bruno started doing more ear training. I'd be curious where. So, working in ear training, I remember practicing ear training the classical way of like sitting there with the piano and
Yeah.
sing thirds and sing a fourth, blah blah blah. Maybe like record them and play them back and try to hear them. And that did less for me in 2 years than like 4 months of learning like 45 songs for a cover band.
Mm.
Like learning the songs by ear and then even just double checking them with like the on like Ultimate Guitar or whatever and just double
Sure.
checking the chords and then playing it with a band and being like, this sounds a little different, blah blah blah. That fine tuning process so much more fruitful than like that is a third. Okay, that is a fourth. I will try to remember that. And like,
I do find when you end up transcribing, though, that helps a lot because it does make you so much faster at recognizing intervals.
yeah, but not only solos, like transcribing like the chords to a song, transcribing the melody to the songs, transcribing the like, can you hear that it starts on the root? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then also, even then, at some point, you have to go, am I going to be okay with rock ear training and or blues ear training, or do I really want to go for jazz ear training?
Right.
Because jazz ear training is another level of like, that's clearly the second inversion of a 7 flat 9 chord, and you're like,
Right.
sure. Yeah, especially if someone has like, I would be so annoyed if it was like someone played this, arguably a C sharp minor 7. They're like, no, I think the keys are implying that it's A. So it's actually clearly an A major 9, no root, and you're like, just like, just get out of here. Like, I don't have time for that. Like,
I mean, at that point, also, how much does it still help you achieving your other musical goals? Because I would say you're training your ears to be able to do other things better. It's a tool, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's if you want to just do it to. I have a little app. Oh, yes, he has perfect ear. I have a Polytonus.
I have Tenuto. So there's like a million of them.
Yeah. Yeah, they're fun.
Musictheory.net. Has a free one. Just that website.
Wow.
Yeah.
If I didn't already pay for Polytonus, but because I paid for it, I am now loyal to like getting the most out of it as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Connect the string jumps with the sounds I heard in my head. Interesting. So the piano, it helped me connect the string jumps. Like that? Do you think?
Maybe. I'm not quite sure what he means.
Like to hear that it's all a D chord? If I do it like that? Man. I've been playing the short scale.
My brain went to string skipping for some reason, but I'm not sure how that's related necessarily to
if you're able to
intervals.
There are some players who I could see it being like getting better at hearing the larger picture. There's been a handful of times in my experience as a player as well where, yeah, like when I'm improvising and want to play a specific interval. Okay. So then in that case, yeah, that's perfectly useful for what it was. I was gonna say it's sometimes it's can be hard for people to hear things in the whole context and like to play A and then kind of keep that in your mind as you go and you're going like and they might hear it as ending on C sharp minor because it's ending on a C sharp.
Right.
That would be the scenario where like getting a better idea of getting the bigger picture. But if it's just hearing a specific interval, then yeah, that is perfect for that.
I think that actually leads to another question. How often do you sing along with your practice?
I try to. I try
When
to
do you
so
bother?
hard. I try to so hard. And then,
I always have it in my mind, like I should do that, but then also I never do it.
yeah, but what's your range?
I don't know.
What's the lowest note you can make?
Ba.
But that's higher than my speaking voice if I speak here. The so down what I'm speaking down
Ba.
here. And
I don't
but
know.
your high one's going to be higher than mine, which means generally when it comes to the guitar, your voice will fit nicer. I used to try to sing but to sing
But you can do
with
down
what
an
I'm
octave, right?
yeah, but it doesn't have then you just become a weird octave pedal and then I can't hit like a low G clear, or yeah, like B would be like now I'm singing like that. Like that's not helping me at all. Like
You've been a
then I
bass
have to
player,
switch
yeah?
back up to the octave. Like it's just always just switch to bass. Yeah, if I was a bass player, it would have
what
made a
do you
lot
find
more
it
sense.
useful for then? Or theoretically, if you had the range. When sing with guitar?
I almost think of it as a fun thing because then if I do falsetto like Bruno's saying, sometimes it can just kind of lead you better with your instincts. Like if I played this just on guitar, that might be like, yeah, that's the end of an idea. But if I was singing, I wouldn't want to hear that. Just because my literal voice wants to relax, and so it wants to go a little lower.
Right.
That's a little kind of annoying. That's a little. And so it would influence what I play there, but not in any like grand A B.
So you don't feel
way.
it makes it more musical or something, or it grounds you more in like a more musical way of expressing an idea.
No, not necessarily, because there's different kinds of approaches to soloing, right? Like there's like a pianistic approach to that. It's not you're not going to sing
you
that.
wouldn't sing that, yeah.
But if you're obviously like on a slide or something, or doing like if you want to play like that, then it'd be like, yeah, you sing or not.
Very Soulsian ideas would be more vocalistic, I would say.
Yeah, either that or like Derek Truxey roots rock, BB King's approach to the blues. He obviously was playing like vocal phrases as opposed to someone like a Stevie Ray Vaughan who was just like, you know, it was like some badass guitar playing, but not necessarily vocal lines.
Yeah.
Although that would be fun. That used to be an issue with when just like lose the voice halfway through the idea. And you're like, all right, well, I guess I'll stop playing.
That's it. They cut off the line. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish taking solos in the first like 3 frets of each. George Benson. George Benson's was not even borderline hilarious. Looking back on it, at least for me, having someone go and we're like, all right, like this is fun and a vibe, but it's not. I wouldn't like. This is very serious. This is very very serious. Like,
I've
John.
definitely also heard players where it just straight up distracts from their playing, and it's like, could you just shut up?
Well, sure. Then there's the Glenn Gould, if you know who that is, or a handful of other people who decide to sing in an operatic tone. And you're just like, okay. Like, I love Glenn Gould's playing.
Different vibe.
Yeah. Or, and not everyone uses it the way Tigran Hamasyan might, where his voice is the percussion to accompany his piano playing. But I do like if instead of the John Pizzarelli or like every blues player at a blues festival, the instead of that thing, I would much
Mm.
prefer if a blues player got up there and did the Glenn Gould like and just like fully went opera as much opera as they could. I
I'd
would
pay to
like
see
that.
that.
I would. Oh my god, a blues opera!
Easily.
I would happily. It's like,
Absolutely.
especially with all the same like kind of at this point trite lyrics of like I woke up this morning and my baby left me or something, but it's in like Italian or something like that. Ah, and my baby left me. And you're like, oh,
Mhm.
okay.
But then
Uh,
with the doubled guitar line, of course.
Yeah, with the double guitar line. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A blopera. Yeah, yeah. That actually kind of a blopera sounds sort of delicious. Like if I was in
It's
Italy and be like, "Would you
intentional.
like to
Like
try a
there's,
blopera?"
yeah,
Hmm.
it works. It's already like the name's there.
Yeah, yeah. I would. Yeah. Can I have a blopera with jam? And you're like, oh yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Actually, I
um,
was really excited. We got back. Oh yeah, we
yeah.
did. We went to the municipality to trade in our U.S. licenses for Dutch license driver's Rijbewijzen,
Uh-huh.
and driver's licenses, and
Did
so
you
we have
get
to wait a
both get
couple
one?
weeks. Yeah,
Oh,
we have to wait a couple weeks for those to come, and apparently you can drive in the States still with a Dutch driver's license. So,
oh,
right,
perfect.
whatever. Um, and I forget where I was going with this. Oh no! Oh no! Oh yeah! On the way back, there was a croissant place that did it the perfect way, which is the Italian way of
Come on, man.
it had the apricot jam in the middle with the glaze and
Oh
everything.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Morgan is on your side. She prefers the French way, 100%.
Mm,
Uh,
just a clean croissant. Nothing. That's it.
yeah. If I don't smell sugar when I put my nose in the bag, it's like,
Not good. All right.
uh,
What about theoretically, advanced player wants to go totally nuts, wants to go Steve Vai way, but has 1 hour a day.
oof, you can't.
You just can't. How would
Literally.
you combine ideas? Like, how would you split it up?
Uh, you'd have to if you wanted to do Vi level stuff,
Maybe
you'd
not
have to
exactly Vi, but like advanced player, like
no, but like extreme.
extreme.
Um, so you'd have to be good already. You'd have to have a working knowledge of a lot of things already.
Right.
You'd have
Yeah.
to have working knowledge of chords already, modes already, scales already, arpeggios already.
Or at least
Um,
know how to form them.
right. And you want to do something very advanced for an hour. It would be like, okay, you're gonna have to split up things per hour, or day per day. But like say Monday, you'd have to write an incredibly hard or challenging to you tune or however many. Tuesday, like uh, record it and arrange it wonderfully. Wednesday, go over that and add whatever improvised solo or whatever thing over it. And then I guess Thursday, do it again, but improvise a new arrangement around the form of the tune.
Mm.
Like uh, it's asking a lot of you every day, every day basically, and
I like
that.
that idea though because it's still in a way similar to the beginner and intermediate levels in that you're focusing around a song essentially.
Yeah,
You're
except you
still
have to
trying to
make it.
craft something.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and then adding like there's not that many people at this point in time that are good examples of that.
Mm.
And I know I bring up his name like every 3 minutes, but Julian Lodge would be the one because he came out with that like acoustic album, but he's played those songs so many times since.
Mm.
And because in the era we have now, we have every time he played it for this college and that clinic and this show and then whatever.
Yeah.
and he's played it on his acoustic album, and then he played it in his trio album. And so like you've heard him take his own song that's not that complicated,
Sure.
uh, and play it acoustic, trio, solo electric, duo, and you've heard him change the intro, you've heard him change the outro, you've heard him
Right.
change the middle, you've heard, and like that's a good example of like
It's like an ever
growth,
evolving song.
ever evolving. Yeah, and the meat is still there. It's still the song, but it's almost
Yeah.
like he's a cover band covering it, and like his cover band changes per gig or
Mm.
whatever. Like the identity of it changes per gig, and so um,
I will say I appreciate that a lot in live artists. Just like um I've always noticed that in David Bowie over the years where like tunes would be totally reimagined like when 10 years have passed or something.
yeah, yeah, that's not as much anymore. But yeah, I love it when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
How loud do you usually like to play? Amp more loud and making a picking noise soft. Uh, the amp loud, play soft approach, uh, that one gives me anxiety a little bit. Um, I'll do that every now and again, but there's a steep consequence when you hit that note hard and you go, "Damn it!" Like, oh god, like. So if you don't mind that consequence, it has a certain
It's the
tone though.
punishment.
Yeah,
You got that's a serious practice session if you fuck up.
yeah, it's maybe not a practice idea for an apartment like with bad soundproofing, but
Yeah.
it is also a certain tone though, which is
Mm.
really cool, especially with a real amp, on Team 30 watts. All right, that's a good amount of tube wattage, like a 10 watt tube amp. Um, uh, what is it like cranked? Would still be quite a bit. Um, Neighbors, yeah, a Badger dynamic. Sorry, yeah. If you're at music college, then yeah. Uh, this is cute. Morgan's asking if she can come in the apartment. Yes, you can come in. Yeah. The headphone practice out versus loud practice. Yeah, that's an interesting one because like headphone practice is what I will generally do, or like light, not too loud from the monitors.
Yeah.
And you definitely just like lose dynamic ability because like I can just barely hitting it, getting as loud as I want, and like
Oh.
I can hear it fine. Like doesn't
Yep.
matter. I can whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
But when I have the monitors crank loud, I immediately regret that hitting.
Mm.
Like and so yeah, it's just uh it's different. But if you're really trying to be consistent with that, then yeah, that would be a good way to go. The only times I think I've started to get what's the word that we've been saying? Intentional
Mm.
about dynamics to that degree of playing with the loud amp and blah 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 is if I'm playing live now, because I play live so infrequently now
Right.
versus the before days. Um, that I need to like go. Don't forget not to just like smash the guitar to just like fucking play away. Remember,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
sometimes but even then, I remember remembering into the before.
Yeah.
There were some bands that just always always played on 10.
Right.
Like even a ballad, it was
Mm.
like maybe go down to 6 or
Right.
7. Like it was always a kind of a louder thing. So if I was gonna
Sure.
do like the whole, like some kind of a swell, I actually had a patch built in, and it was for swells. I would turn on the boost, like another
Okay.
3 dB
Yeah.
before I did the swells, so I could still be heard while swelling over this band.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But other bands, or like play behind a singer or something like that, then yeah, dynamics became really really important. I actually wanted to make a video about that because I think in most
Mm.
scenarios dynamics are to be ignored.
Hmm. That'd be
Like they don't,
interesting.
they're
Why?
not that in, like they ruin takes. Like if you just get really loud, anytime we're in a gear demo or something like that, right? That you see a gear demo and it's like, this sounds really good, and it sounds really good, and they hit hard, and you just go, and it like overloads the thing, and you're like, that didn't help anyone. The or like or in my scenario where if I'm playing quiet and the band just doesn't care, like
Right.
then I'm just gonna get drowned out.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, yeah, you should. I think in a lot of scenarios, just set it to around how loud you need to be, and
Yeah.
that's about it. For solo guitar, maybe not always. Maybe you want to add some more dynamics, but for live, like band, I don't think a ton of dynamics is always a good idea.
Well, for practice too, it's interesting. Like, do you practice clean
Oh, I practice all
or
the
unannounced?
tones,
All
the
the
tones.
Okay.
Yeah, we got like regular clean. The big goal with here would be like, how do I make the like series bridge thing that's usually very hot?
Yeah.
Can I still make it clean? Okay, good. You know, and then like the light gain, the more gain, and then the like, it's time. You know, and I'll go
It's time
through.
tone.
Well, that's the, you know, when you get to do the, you know, all
Right.
that stuff.
Yeah.
And then one last, like, regular, you know, that would be like the Motley Crue tone. More like regular distortion. Because usually for the way I enjoy like going through things is going through the old set lists of songs I guess I used to play,
Sure.
because it requires that, you know, a different tone for every kind of thing. And then also in that scenario, if I practice on this guitar versus another guitar, brings a whole another sound to each of these tones in the fractal, and then thusly to the song.
Well, I think that makes sense, especially if we're talking about intentional practice again. Like, if you're trying to serve the song, like you want to know how hard to dig in on specific tone and that kind of thing. I've found actually precisely because I don't have a musical repertoire goal, I just practice without an amp, and I'm just working on keeping all my notes even and clean. Which, if there's a bit of distortion on it, that's, you know, that was the teenage years to cheat my way through things, through mistakes. Put distortion on it, you'll make it through, kind of thing.
Why would you want to? Why do you try to make it even and clean?
To be more accurate, I would say. Not to have like a very dead, sterile kind of way of playing, but for precision and accuracy kind of thing. Yeah. Where normally, like back in the day, I would just put a distortion on it and not care so much, and just no one will hear that one note that didn't quite.
Yeah, sometimes I wish I had the mind of a true jazz player, which would be just play it, and if it's sloppy, like, you know, they understand the line. Where you get these guys with like the big jazz box and like the tone turned down and on the neck pick, and it's like boop 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 boop, and you're like, that sounded like trash, and then they like, how is that just okay? Yeah, no, clearly.
I think that's also changed a lot over the years, though. I feel like older players do that more than, like, because if I look at fusion players now, everything is like just so precise, almost robotic. It's insane.
Well, that is the word that would come next. Is robotic. Like when the previous topic of like maybe people improvise less because the internet is harsher of a critic and wants it perfect.
Yeah.
When that comes into the jazz world, and people like maybe like write 15 songs or 15 solos over this one song, so they have like all their licks ready to go, and it's like it's still improv, but you're just kind of also definitely just mixing licks. Yeah, I can definitely feel like there's no way you're improvising this 2-minute long 16th note with no breaks solo. Like, what is even happening here? But it's impressive. That's like Pasquale Grasso, if you know him.
No.
jazz dude.
How do you write
Super
that?
chops.
Pasquale.
Uh, yeah, Pasquale. And then Grasso, Grasso.
Yep.
Solo guitar, and then like full band. So much the chops. Like,
Mm.
uh,
Jazz player.
yeah, yeah. Um, Solo, it makes sense. In the band, sometimes the chops give me the feel that you were mentioning of like
Mm.
when you see it solo though, you're like, okay, this is robotics done correctly. This is Boston Robotics or whatever with the thing with the dog that's everyone was like, that's him solo. Where you're like, wow, that's cool. In
Yeah.
the trio, sometimes at least for
A
me, I
bit too
can be
much.
like, well, is like, is this it? Is like, is that it? I would prefer
Mm.
um
Something more
something
dynamic.
or like space, like
Yeah.
you
Just
know
breath.
breath. If you're gonna have that kind of a tone, like play in, I don't know. I would almost want to hear more register shifts.
Hmm.
Then be like, oh my god, like, all
Yeah.
right, can we?
Like someone that
Um,
doesn't stop talking.
yeah, which is how I feel right now. Sorry, by the
Not at all.
way.
No, no, no. That was not. That was not that.
uh,
um. Cool. Are there any questions from the chat before we wrap it up? If
I have a
so,
question from the chat. How many George Benson albums has the chat listened to?
good question. I can tell you my answer.
0.
A big fat 0. Probably be
You
ashamed of that, but it is what it is.
you should listen to. Oh, you probably can't listen to things on here, I'm guessing.
No, I'm probably not on stream. No,
Damn.
but we can give a recommendation, and I'll drop it in the Discord.
This Masquerade.
Okay.
Um,
What year is it from?
Breezin is also great, obviously, and Great Give Me the Night, but this Masquerade has like the most just like indulgent like solo intro while he is singing along with it thing, and it gives me life.
Wait, is it a song or an album?
The song on that album, Masquerade, from Phantom of the Opera. Ah, I wish.
Why can I not
Uh,
find the album? This Masquerade.
Miss Masquerade, George Benson, George.
Well,
There
anyway,
we go. Boop, boop. There you
all right, cool. I like In Your Eyes, says Bruno.
go. That makes me smile.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. I guess if no one
Yeah.
has any questions.
Perfect. Elliot, thank you so much for coming on. That was fun.
Yeah. Thank you for
Great.
having me.
Absolutely. If you haven't checked out Elliot, please go check out his YouTube channel, Elliott Klein. If you Google YouTube that, you'll find Elliott Klein. Surprise, surprise.
Yes. Please do all the things that one can do for a YouTube channel.
Hit the bell,
Yeah.
hit the
Yeah. Right.
follow, or to
I
subscribe.
forget. Yeah. Yeah. It's as far as I can tell, a much more analytical channel. What is it? The one I released yesterday was for the times when you're using a humbucker guitar and you can split it in case you want that like single coil sound for a second,
Mm.
but you're at a venue, which has happened a lot, with the electricity sucks. So you're like, I want the single coil sound, but I don't want to split it because I'll just get that disgusting hum.
Yeah.
And can an EQ effectively split your humbucker? Can you make an EQ so extreme that it can basically split it and recreate a single coil? The answer is sort of, but at
You
least
have to watch your video for that.
yeah.
You have a lot of
Yeah.
videos. It's not just you do
There's a
some
lot
gear
of
stuff. You have a lot of videos, a lot of tutorial lesson type things. It's great. You should check it out. anyone that's interested in guitar, please go subscribe to Elliott.
Actually,
Elliott, yeah.
Even better, I will happily send whoever does this every song I've ever written, ever recorded, ever, because it's a tall ask. It would be really funny to me. It might feel mean to whoever does it. If you could watch 100 videos and comment boring or I liked it on ones you find boring or you liked, then
Like
happily,
a feedback group kind of thing.
Yeah. Also, just getting like say 50% of it was boring to someone, and I just got 50 comments of boring. That would also make me laugh. But yeah. That challenge is out there in case anyone wants.
They're not though. They're not. It's good stuff. You people will like it. Elliott, thank you so much for coming on once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'll see you all next week. There won't be streams for a week or so, I think. But I'll see you in the Discord. Of course, if you want to support the channel, you can find links in all the thingy boxes below. But yeah, thank you all for hanging out, and we'll catch you all on the next one. All right. Bye-bye.